This is Talking Hardcore, the podcast for people who love hardcore history.
You study history because it allows us to understand the present and prepare for the future.
Yeah, it's like Shakespeare or Greek tragedy.
Could you imagine what was in the Library of Alexandria?
I bet it was porn.
I'm not even wearing pants right now, Scott.
What's the old Clint Eastwood line? A man's got to know his limitations. I know my limitations.
The Talking Hardcore podcast is presented by Ace Industrial Solutions. Are you in need of skilled trade professionals for your next project? Look no further.
Hey everybody, you're tuning in to Talking Hardcore. Thanks for joining us. I'm George.
I'm Scott.
And this is Matt Bella, author and frequent contributor to the podcast. Today we're talking about the book The Poison King, which Scott and I have both read parts of. Full disclosure, we have not had finished it because we didn't need to, because Matt does his homework, and Matt has already read this book multiple times. And so that book is about Mithridates, the Poison King, the bane of the Roman existence, the man that defied Roman authority for like 40 years, right? And then here in the Western society, he's a footnote, but in the Eastern world, he's a hero.
Good point.
Turkish society, yeah.
In just Eastern culture, he's a hero. All right, Matt.
Yep.
Fire away. You wanted to ask us questions first. Go ahead.
So, yeah, my only, you already addressed it, George. Like, I was wondering if you read the full book, and you don't need to because the first part of this guy's life is so exciting to me, and we'll get to that. So it's just like,
I'm going to finish it. It's just 15 hours, and I haven't had a chance, but I'm very much enjoying it because that's a fascinating time in history. What? Is it 11 hours?
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it already with saying that this guy is so hugely important and not talked about enough, which is why I'm happy to have an opportunity.
So at the beginning of the book, he talks about all the places like where he's considered a hero, and yet if you look in the Western world,
that's one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, you look in the Western world, it's literally a footnote when you're talking about Rome. It's a footnote, right? You're like.
He was going around liberating Roman provinces. Yep.
Yeah.
He was going around liberating Roman provinces.
Conquering.
And the air. Yeah. Well, same thing when you have to conquer a conqueror, but like the people who
isn't liberating. If you're still then it's only liberating if you. It's only liberating if you then leave. I think
the general perception of Rome at that time. I think that we think of Rome as the heroes because they won, because we based our government on them and stuff like that. But back in the day, they were just the people who took over and never left. You know what I mean? They were the Soviet Union or whatever, but they brought whatever peace. So Hannibal first was liberating the cities, the nation states from their rule, and then. Absolutely, Mithridates was called the Hannibal of the East.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Well, and
so we can step back. We can step back a minute here.
I have mixed feelings about Rome. Yeah. Personally,
I don't say
there's good and bad
because it's history. I don't look at either side as the good guys. Like I don't think of Genghis Khan as the bad guy, but I don't think of him as a good guy.
He's pretty bad.
What he did was some of it was very awful.
He was bad,
historically, morally awful. Right, but I don't judge history the same way I judge current events.
That's fair.
Right, I don't put a moral spin on today.
There's a big part
I
of
don't
this
think
too.
of Alexander as a terrible person. I just think of him as a person. I just think of him as a person.
He's pretty bad.
A product of
again.
Yeah.
Historically, sometimes he's amazing, and to some people, he was awesome, and he did things that were not great.
It depends what your motivations are.
But you can't ever really know somebody's motivations.
His motivation was to conquer the known world.
But that doesn't always mean it's a bad thing.
Pretty bad.
No, conquering the known world, if you're doing it to stop Nazism, is probably not bad, right?
Yeah, but he didn't hate...
I know, but that's the point, right? I can give you a context. I can think of a context where we could justify that. Okay? I could easily make that argument. I could play devil's advocate there. I don't judge historical figures by modern standards.
That's fair.
Okay.
You don't look at them, but it's...
I don't judge them by modern standards. Now, I will say, okay, this is how many people they killed, or this is the awful things they did, but I don't judge them by modern standards. They just were, right? The part of history that's important is knowing what happened and why it happened. And you don't need to say, all slave owners were evil. And you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? Ancient Roman Republic, there were some great things to learn from that. Okay? Also, great things to learn from the fall of the Roman Republic.
Sure.
And the rise of the Roman Empire.
Sure.
All kinds of interesting things that we can learn about human nature.
All right, so back to Mithridates.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Guy was a baller.
So
Spoke 22
I think
languages.
it's important to keep in mind that I think it's important to keep in mind that people can be product of their times, and times are a product of those people. Because while I do consider Mithridates to be an absolutely inspiring heroic figure, he did do some nasty stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Killed
people
his father.
may not know where this.
His father.
Did he kill his father?
Yep, and his mother. And he married his sister.
No. He didn't kill his father, but he killed his mother and married his sister.
Yeah, his father died. His father died, and when his father died,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
he fled.
So
and lived in the
let's
woods.
take this in order. Yeah,
Yeah.
We're jumping ahead.
Matt,
I really want to set this up.
Give us the cliff notes of his
first
life
all,
story.
All right. So first of all, where's Pontus? Like, who knows even know where that country is? So it's something that people don't know enough about, but it's maybe in the back of your head. So Pontus is basically the northeastern most central portion of what is now modern day Turkey.
Right.
It's right on the Black Sea, which is where a lot of these naval battles and stuff happen that you're about to you might be hearing about in the context of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty small country. It was wealthy, but it was right in the smack dab in the middle of what were then all these Roman provinces. So everything we know about Mithridates comes from the Romans. And what I like about this story because of that, and similar to the Spartacus story, is that when you have a proud warrior culture telling you in their history books how this group of supposedly subordinate people kick their butts time and time again, you have good reason to believe that because they have every reason to tell you differently.
Very true.
Yep. But yeah.
And as we're getting into the beginning of this, the author Adrian Mayer, who I will tout time and time and again through this episode, this conversation, is that something you talk about, George, and we talk about here. Everybody talks about it when they're talking about history. If they're talking about it truthfully, is that at a certain point we don't know what happened. We just don't know. There's gaps, and we don't know. And so it's an interpretation of that that's the most important, and you rely on consensus of sources and all that kind of stuff. But what this author specifically points out, which I think is unique, and what kind of just really grips me about her book, The Poison King, about Mithridates, is that she says, what we can do here is employ a scientific use of our imagination.
Yep. No, I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Like, about human nature, you can make educated guesses.
Yep.
Because that's really what it is, right? You're making educated guesses based on human nature, based on circumstantial evidence. That's what we're left to do. And I think she did a good job of that so far. I haven't finished it, but what a fascinating story. So, Matt, I'm going to hit Cliff's notes real quick, and then you jump in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mithridates was king of Pontus, which, again, as Matt said, on the Black Sea in Turkey. Rome was his hated enemy. In 88 BC, he arranges for all over the Eastern Roman part of the Roman Empire for these cities and peoples to rise up and kill all the Romans in their cities and towns, man, woman, and child. What was it? Something like 50,000 Romans were killed in one night all over
80,000.
80,000.
It was a total of 80,000.
Yeah, estimated at 80,000. Men, women, and children were killed in one night, all out of nowhere. Just a complete insane thing to be able to pull off. Okay, and then that obviously pissed off Rome. They spent a lot of time and years fighting Mithridates. Sometimes he wins, a lot of times he loses and has to barely escape, only to come back with another army later and eventually, was it Pompey? Pompey that finally finished him off?
Yeah.
We're jumping all around. And
I'm
so,
just giving
like,
the Cliff's notes.
yeah,
I'm just giving the Cliff's notes, and then we can fill in the details.
That's a big one. That's a big one because it was Pompey who ended up defeating him. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
so you got to think about that, right? 88, he's already an old man who's been dealing with Rome a long time already. And then
he's in his 60s, his late 60s.
He's in his 60s. And then he dies in his 80s because Pompey was he
died right about that time. Yeah, he died old. There's a story about, there's a rhyme about him, like Mithridates, the story is told, this great king, he died old, which is a hard thing to do when you're opposing Rome.
Yeah,
but it was still like late 60s. Yeah,
it's how he died that.
But I mean, if Pompey killed him, it wasn't around 88.
What?
No. It wasn't around. That was early on in his career when he was in the first war against Rome. Yeah,
right. So. Go ahead.
So it's how he died. And I know we're jumping around, Matt, but I'm gonna give the end real quick.
Yeah, spoil it.
So
cool.
All right. So Mithridates was constantly in fear of being assassinated, right? So he was mixing poisons and taking microdosing poisons.
Yeah.
To build up an immunity. Okay. So an assassin couldn't kill him by poison. And anyway, so at the end. And I think this is accurate, but he tried to poison himself.
Yeah, that's the story.
But he couldn't do it because he had all these. He already mixed and microdosed enough poison to where it just didn't kill him. So then a trusted bodyguard, he basically had the trusted bodyguard kill him, and that's the story. That's
the story as we know it. There's what I like about Adrian Mayer's depiction of the story, which is highly resourced, is that it gives a little bit more detail into the practicality of that actual situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you take it on the broad strokes as you gentlemen have just done, and it is like this weird story where this guy was so afraid of poison, and then he finally, he built up an immunity to it, and then in the end he tried to kill himself with it. I love the ending of this story, and I'm happy for that little bit of mystery right there until we get there.
But rightfully so, afraid of poison, because that was a legit political weapon in his country at that
time.
Yeah.
A bunch of his family members were poisoned.
Yep.
People tried to poison him. There. He killed a lot of people with poison. By all accounts, he was studying poison and antidotes for a long time. He was like a scholar, wrote the book on it.
And supposedly, there's I forgot what there's an antidote. Supposedly, is it the Mithridates antidote or something like that? He developed an antidote for all poisons, supposedly.
Yeah, that's what he was working on all his life. Yeah, and then the Romans really wanted that, so after he died, they ended up with it, and that's another point that I have. But also, that even Julius Caesar was rumored to have taken. It was kind of like a common thing where your nobility take this, you know what I mean? And so he was written to have taken this universal antidote, but it was only 16 years after Mithridates ruled Pontus. So that's my next point actually, is that the influence of poison generally in the ancient world cannot be underestimated.
Right. One of the things she talked about in the book too that you're starting to hear more about is stuff like how poisons in small amounts are actually good for you.
Mm.
And
yeah.
You see that
in certain ways.
You see that in modern times in medicine, right? Microdosing is a real thing that actually helps a lot of people. And you can see your body needs to be challenged, right? Look at all the problems we have nowadays with autoimmune disorders. Why is that? Because we take freaking showers every day. Well, we live in very clean environments that doesn't have a lot of bacteria. And so your immune system has nothing else to do, so it fights itself. Yep. But taking a little bit of poison probably would be not bad for you.
Well, and can I expand on one thing? This Please. Is kind of I'm going to kind of diverge a little bit. Do you know why?
That's what we do.
Do you know why there's so many people with peanut allergies these days?
Well, there's a lot of theories on that.
Well, one of the main reasons, and there's actually a study on this. Doctors in the 90s and early 2000s told expectant mothers not to eat peanuts.
Yeah.
Because it would be it's like hazardous or
in case they had an allergy.
No.
No?
The moms didn't have the allergy.
Right.
But they said it was disruptive to like the baby or something along those lines. Like it would cause like distress in the child
Sure.
or in the fetus. And then they stopped eating peanuts, and then now all of a sudden you have a bunch of kids with peanut allergies.
Right.
Because they weren't exposed to nuts.
Right.
When they were.
Yeah, Leslie made sure to actually eat peanut butter.
Same
and
thing.
then also when the babies were little, she would like eat peanut butter and then go kiss them and things like that, just to make sure they were exposed to it in a small way, young, instead of waiting until they were never been exposed to it and then being more likely to have an allergy.
Well, it's the same thing with shellfish too.
Sure.
But there are natural shellfish allergies, but same thing. If the mother doesn't change her diet by any means, then the fetus is exposed to the same foods the mom eats.
Right, and they're less likely to be allergic. But that's what I'm saying. So you can build up tolerances. Challenging your body and your immune system through taking small amounts of poison is probably similar to running a marathon.
I've taken some poison.
But like, yeah, right? I mean,
I don't think alcohol counts.
It is a poison.
I don't think that counts.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're microdosing poisons. To Mithridates, we're doing exactly what he did.
Cheers.
We're microdosing poisons.
Is that Alexander the Great? Did he microdose?
He overdosed.
He overdosed poisons.
He overdosed poisons. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's not microdose. So, but I mean that does. I mean that's what that is. That's a toxin that will kill you in high quantities.
Sure.
But if you take it in small quantities, there's benefits.
Maybe some high quantities. There's benefits.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how high the quantities.
Anyway, go ahead, Matt. Sorry, I kind of just took us down the wrong path there.
No.
That was a good one. That's very relevant because, they talk about his stuff persisting to today. Even some of these. He was like basically a scientist of his day, and he really worked on toxins. And some of the things he developed are actually absolutely still in use today.
Yeah, nowadays he'd have a podcast.
But I want to zoom into this dude's. Yeah, he would. He'd be like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but he'd be like, "Here's how you." He'd be like Steve Irwin out there in the wild. Oh, look at this little boy!
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let it take a nip of my
this
arm.
thing's gonna
I'll
bite
take
my
it
head
so
off.
much of its venom, I am immune. Like he'd be that. It'd be so cool, man. That'd be great. He'd be the crocodile hunter of. Oh, I'd love to see that.
See, Matt, that could be you. Start researching
I want
poisons.
to zoom into his life. Yeah.
He might say that.
I
but he
will.
also
I'll
might
get
be
on
like,
that. That's my next.
He might be like, today we're going to take some arsenic, and we're also going to mix it with lead.
And then we're going to see what happens. And then we're going to see what happens when we ingest it.
Yeah, and then maybe I'll die. Will I die today?
No, I'm going to try it on this slave boy first.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't die, then I can try it.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, it's just
not like he was risking the crown, his personage.
Well,
I'm sure he had slaves that he was testing that shit.
yeah, but he almost died a couple times.
Yeah, sure.
He took a little too much.
Yeah.
Well, that happens to the best of us.
What are you doing, George?
Nothing. Just fucking with you. Anyway, go ahead, Matt. Fire away. Back to earlier life.
He was an athletic youth of his time, where like he engaged in all the sports, riding, hunting, all that kind of stuff. And then, at a certain point, his father was poisoned and died. Okay, and it really, he was like, I can't trust anyone around me. I'm in line for the succession. I'm the prince. They're going to get me next. And one day, he picked up his backpack. He said, hey, guys, I'm going out hunting with my boys. See you later. And he didn't come back for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Living in the woods.
Eating poisons.
Yep. Yeah, just fucking experimenting.
Eating mushrooms.
Yeah. Probably.
Hunting, fishing, living off the land.
Sounds way more fun
what
than
he
being
also
Prince.
did, and safer. He was with his boys. And then what he also did was ride around his empire, his future possibly empire, his kingdom, and meet all the heads of these little cities and fortresses and be like, hey, what's going on? I brought some pheasants. You got to hang out? And they're like, you're the prince? You are destined to take over this kingdom someday? And you're out here ragged on a horse hunting? Come in. You know what I mean? Like, This is an extraordinary experience for not only the ruler of the kingdom, but its subjects.
Well, and it shows how unique he was. Because who does that? when they could be living the life of luxury.
Mithridates.
Yeah.
So when it
that's
came
unique,
time for him to actually
right?
rule, he had these personal connections with
Right.
with the people, the most important people in his kingdom. You
He
know,
saw
the people
the
who were controlling
value
the
of
force,
that at a
controlling
young
the
age.
money, controlling the little sections of his army around that he has to call upon in times of need.
Mm-hmm.
They know him personally. They are not receiving an order from some king in some far-off palace. They knew this dude. They fed him.
That's a big deal.
He fed them. You know what I mean? Like he
Smart
came
guy.
in big. Yep, absolutely. And it was just totally natural, dude. He is absolutely smart. And when it comes time for him to fight Rome, you think if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be him.
Right.
You know, he had everything going for him, the military competency, the personality, and Rome squashed him, dude. They got that guy.
Yeah.
If you have to have a king,
they were a
like,
fucking
they would be
juggernaut. That's what part of the moral of this story is. Even somebody as exceptional and amazing as Mithridates still got because Rome was inevitable.
Yep.
Right? They were that much of a juggernaut. They were like the Detroit Lions this year.
I can't believe you bring this shit up.
That's what I'm saying. I see it. You football fans know what I'm saying. The Lions are inevitable right now, and that's what Rome was like back then. Just crushing fuckers.
They're going to play the Bills.
I'm not worried.
You're not worried?
Sorry, Matt. I know this has nothing to do with the podcast.
No.
But for the first time in Scott and I's adult lives or whole lives, the team that we root for is the best team in the NFL. And it's very difficult to think about anything else. Like literally anything else. It's so crazy. All right, back to Mithridates. If anybody on the Discord channel wants to talk about the Lions, please reach out.
Yep, we'll have an episode just on the Detroit Lions.
I'd love to do that.
That's cool.
If more people are interested, please. I would be happy to go into detail. Anyway, go ahead, Matt. Mithridates.
I lived in Sacramento for 10 years, and I watched the Sacramento Kings basketball team come up from being an underdog to literally going toe-to-toe with the Lakers in the playoffs, and I totally
got robbed by that
spirit.
junkie official that was on the take.
And I also, they had a great team. And I also,
that's the thing.
like Vladdy Divac could go toe-to-toe with Shaq, dude. Like, he was just as
Chris
big.
Webber, Divac, that was the ref.
Yeah,
that was
Webber,
the worst called series, and that ref was Donovan, the guy who ended up getting found out was gambling on the games.
Oh.
And he hosed Sacramento.
Oh.
I think,
Matt, did you not know that? That's a real thing that happened.
I didn't know that. I just watched the players.
When we
I
get
didn't know
off of
that.
this, look that up. That series, everybody always thought that was one of the worst called series ever. The Lakers shot so many free throws.
I remember being
absurd.
angry about some calls in the moment.
Yes.
Man.
That ref was kicked out of the league and arrested. He was gambling on those games.
We had such great players, dude. It was truly amazing to watch that stuff in action. It was brilliant. It's so proud.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah. I'm so glad you know so much about that. But so like if this dude, the way we set him up, if you're gonna have a king or a president, wouldn't you want it to be him, like someone like that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Why not?
Yeah.
Not modern times.
Oh.
Back then, yes. Modern times, I'm kind of looking for a poison king.
I mean, going around developing.
That's true, but I'm not looking for a poison king in modern times.
No.
But what you're saying,
hasn't gotten into that yet.
So
just
what you're saying about what he is like though with the regular people, I want to point something out, Matt. By all accounts, that's how Trump is with regular people.
So, and you
just so
literally voted him to be president, right?
Well, no. I mean, just so you know, like you talk to regular people
it is a populist,
that know him,
and it's totally
he
authentic.
Talks to them, remembers their names, remembers the names of their kids.
Right, absolutely. Right.
So
that's the spirit.
That's all I'm saying. Not saying Trump's Mithridates.
I think the same thing, and like that's why I love this guy so much, because it was just totally. He was a populist guy, but he didn't intend for it to be that. He didn't say, you know what, guys?
He was just a good leader.
Go out there and secure my political future.
He was a good leader.
Yeah. It was by necessity. His parents were like, his dad was assassinated,
and his mom tried to kill him.
Was like,
wasn't his mom trying to kill him?
Maybe trying to poison him, right? Yeah, so you and so he got out of there, and he just okay, we can go to this person. That's an important. His network developed naturally, and it's just such
But
a
he was
powerful
smart enough to
political
put in the time.
relationship with his people.
Yeah, he was smart enough to put in the time.
I think he did it actively. I think he did it actively as well. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, he was a smart guy.
Yeah, and so when he gets back, one day, he and his boys just ride back into town. They've been gone for 7 years. They're like 22. Yep, they're like 22 years old now. They're strong. They're fit. They're tan.
They've been living in the woods, murdering shit, and just jacked, tan and jacked.
Yeah. Yep.
Immune to poisons.
They learned all these skills from the wild. Yeah.
Yep. Like, you can't poison me. I'm bigger than you. And the king is back,
hey, Mom.
motherfuckers.
Yep. Yeah. What's going on around here lately? Yeah. So he immediately kind of gets the favor of the court. Yes.
He's Simba.
And he immediately gets the favor of the court popularity-wise.
Matt, he's Simba.
Not like... Okay, I've never seen the Lion King.
No. Think about that. That's like legit. That's Macbeth and the Lion King, right? Like what he did. Like, okay, somebody kills his dad, and he runs off in the woods for 7 years. That's the plot of the Lion King.
Okay.
That's wild.
Well, there you go. Mithridates
Lion King
influence
just
in
jacked
Disney.
Mithridates, but in a much shittier version. Because Lion King sucks.
I love it.
Hot take: Lion King is trash.
I've never seen it.
What?
But yeah.
Holy shit, you were old.
Didn't have the
I forgot how old he is. That's right. He's older than
I'm
us.
48 years old, ladies.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Thank
That
you.
5 years is the difference. Like, we saw that.
I guess so.
Scott's 2 years younger than me.
Wait a minute.
I'm 42.
How old are you, George?
I'm 42.
What? You're 42?
So 6 years.
I'm older than you? I thought you were older than me this whole time.
Why? You look way older than me. What are you talking about?
Because you're wiser than me, sir.
Yeah, sure. Good cover, Matt. No. So that 6 years makes all the difference. So, like, I saw Lion King. I was just a little bit too old to
I think
really
it was
like
92.
Yeah, it came out in 92. I was 10. Yeah. You would have been 18. You would have missed that. Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah. And I was 8.
You
So.
didn't miss anything. It's trash. It's a shittier version of this Mithridates.
Nah, it's awesome.
It's trash.
It's awesome.
No, he literally goes in the woods for a song and then comes back.
Yeah. It's
like,
awesome.
it's such trash. You watch that now, you'd be like, this is garbage.
I have watched it. I have a child.
It's trash. He goes into the woods, meets these two guys after watching his dad get murdered by his uncle.
Eats bugs.
And they just teach him a song to sing about, fuck it, don't care.
It eats
That's
bugs.
the moral of the song, is Hakuna Matata, right? Don't care.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, yeah, you saw all this crazy shit. Who cares?
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
about
just eat some bugs. It's not bad.
It's fine. You know what? I kind of like
It's
that.
trash.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you, George. That is probably the most baller way to handle shit.
No, it's not.
Can't change it.
No, somebody
it's all
murders
good.
your
Just
dad.
live with it.
The most baller way is to go kill him.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, but not because he wants to, because they were trying to keep him from going.
Yeah, but he did it.
Because those were terrible role models.
Nah, it was great. I mean, you can't change it. You just got to suck it up and deal with it.
Anyway, back to Mithridates.
Anyway.
It's the real Lion King, but better.
Okay, fair enough. So, the king returns.
Yeah, he comes back.
Back to you, Matt.
Yeah.
Ready to fuck shit up.
Yeah. Yep, and he receives the favor of the court, not in any legal sense, because he's not, his mom's been running the show for all this time.
And
but
people
just
knew
the
he was
popularity
alive, though.
sense.
Right? They knew he was alive because he was going from town to town.
No, they thought they were dead. And I wondered about that. Like, did not someone communicate saying the prince is here? But I think
maybe they
not,
were like,
because
we
when
don't
they
want to
got
tell
back,
the queen because she'll try to kill him.
Yep. And when he got back, they thought they were dead. They thought he was dead, and he walks in one day, and he just rules the show.
That's fucking baller.
I can't.
So he invites his mom to a dinner in which she is, after which she no longer is mentioned in the history books.
She's poisoned.
That's all we know.
Yeah, he whacks his
That's
mom
all we
because
know.
she tried to whack him. Fair game, I guess. If your mom tries to kill you, I think it's fair to kill her.
That's tough.
I'm not very
That's tough. That's what
Jesus-like
he
in
left
that
for.
manner. Like, I think it's fair to kill her. I love my mom.
I
would never try to kill her, but she would also never try to kill me.
Scott, what's your thoughts on poisoning your own mother?
Well, I've met his mother. I think he's probably in favor of it.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Come on. That was pretty good.
There's a chance she might listen to this.
Yeah, right. There's 0% chance, even if your mom turned on the episode, she's still listening. 0.
I'm pretty sure my mom is like, the only listener to this podcast in our family.
Does your mom listen?
I know my
Shout
mom.
out to
listens.
Matt's
my mom.
mom.
Hi, Mom. Yeah, she does.
I love it. That's
Hi,
awesome.
Mom.
All the more reason
Love
to
you.
keep putting Matt on episodes.
Right.
That's at least one listener.
Hi, Mom.
Hi,
Nice to meet you.
Mrs. Matt's mom. All right, go ahead.
So one thing we have to remember about Mithridates is that he was absolutely convinced that he was a descendant of Alexander the Great, and there might actually be good evidence for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence that he wasn't.
Well, more than that, like there's Adrian Mayer traces it out where she's like, actually, the wife or the husband of Cleopatra was the wife of one of Alexander's generals or something. So there is a lineage there because they all intermarried. Okay.
Yeah, they're talking about shit. What was his name? Ptolemy, who went to Egypt.
Yeah.
And they ruled
Right.
until the time of Caesar. I mean,
Yep.
Why wouldn't he be right about something like that? Like, that's not that long ago.
I think
right?
I
That's
think the
not that long
lineage is
ago.
actually traced out the way she depicts it, right?
Sure.
And there's not that much time in between. And he
You
had
know-
the cloak of Alexander too.
I mean, you're
purple
looking
cloak,
at
and
he has
was
to go
very
back,
much
what, 6
identified.
generations, 7 or 8 generations? That's totally doable.
It's not that far.
No,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
totally doable.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing that we like to think stuff like that is all BS. But it's totally possible. And at the time, if it was BS, people probably would have said, hey, this is bullshit. Or at least some of them
Right.
might have.
Maybe they did.
We know
And
the
maybe they
families,
did.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's totally possible, and we shouldn't dismiss it outright just because we don't have actual proof. We just say it's possible. It wouldn't shock me, right? That's totally believable. Alexander left a big footprint.
Yep.
And people that were related to him were in charge for a long time in other places.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Footprint.
I mean, like Ptolemy's people still ruled Egypt till Cleopatra. And he was Alexander's best friend.
Yeah.
Right? And they still ruled Egypt till Cleopatra. That's after Mithridates.
Yep.
Another 30 years. So why wouldn't that be possible that his people were still ruling Turkey?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally doable.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Keep
keep
going,
going, Matt.
back to the story,
and there's
Matt.
been multiple Cleopatras. That's a good point, and I think that it's important. That's a good point, George. Actually, that like a lot of people, like Alexander the Great, claimed descendancy from, ostensibly
Achilles.
the mythological figure of Achilles, right? So
Right.
it's not like this is some mythological figure way in the ancient past. Like
And
you're
how do
claiming
we know
he's
that
from the
Achilles
Bible
wasn't
or
a
something.
real dude? Like, how do we know?
Well, right, yeah, we can talk about that. But I mean, you're right. This is just several generations in the future where they're like, hey, we can
and
trace our
Achilles would have
family, and
lived in
actually
the-
I have his clothes.
800 years before Alexander. So that's much less likely
Right.
to be a real thing than 200 years.
Yeah.
Just statistically. But look at, like, you posted something in the Discord, Matt, that I think is relevant to this. Or I think it was you that, you did. The signatures of every monarch of Great Britain since 1340 or whatever it was. It was only 31. Okay. If they know every monarch,
31.
the bloodline of every monarch back to Britain to 1331, this is a fraction of that. Why wouldn't Pontus know that? Why wouldn't Pontus know his
I agree.
family heritage? We know every
I
king,
agree.
or we know every president of the United States. This is a similar thing. That's a similar timeline. Like, it'd be weird if we didn't know who was president in 1830.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't know. Who could know that far back?
Yeah.
Like, they could easily
Yeah.
just be, oh, no,
So it's-
we know my great-great-great-grandpa was king, and that was Alexander's buddy's nephew. Like,
Yep.
that
straight
makes
up.
sense that
I
they would
believe-
still
yeah.
know that.
Yep. I'm glad you focused on that. Actually, I think
Yeah,
it's
everybody
important
check
because a
out
lot
the
of
Discord, Talking Hardcore, or Hardcore History Discussion Discord channel. Matt likes to share very interesting new like social or news and media stories in one of the tabs. And this one is a picture of every signature of a British monarch since 1300s. and it was only 31. And it took me a minute. I'm like, Jesus, has it only been 31?
Yeah, I had to check on it too.
And then Matt's
was
like,
like,
yeah,
whoa.
I verified it. I'm like, holy crap. Because you think about it,
Yeah.
we've had 47 presidents,
Yeah.
but they only get 8
Yeah.
years. Most,
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
they get 31 lifetimes.
Yeah.
For the most part.
that's what I'm saying. So it makes
Yeah.
sense that it was less. But man, that's funny to think about. There's 31 people between 700 years.
No, they
That's crazy.
average 50 years a person.
No, but they weren't, because a lot of those people died in battle
No, I got you.
or got usurped.
No,
like, shit, the life expectancy wasn't great until pretty recently.
I'm just saying, average of 50 years.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't rule for an average of 50 years.
Just call it an average.
But it
That's
wouldn't
why
even
they
be
call it
close
an
to that.
average.
What's 700 divided by
30?
31?
Isn't that 50?
No.
I'm
Sorry,
pretty sure
I'm
it's
finding
close.
out right now.
We're going to the math.
Oh, it's
700
22.
divided by 31
Thank
is
you.
22.5.
How did I mess that up?
Well, because you are
Suck
not
it.
good at math.
Apparently not. I was,
Yeah. It's okay.
Damn.
Yeah, and then you got to remember people like Elizabeth.
No, with the above and below, that's like some people definitely did rule for their entire lifetime. You know?
Oh yeah, Elizabeth ruled for what, 80 years or 70 years?
No idea.
A long fucking time. And Queen Victoria, those people were the outliers though. A bunch of those people ruled for like 1 year and then got beheaded.
This shit happens.
Yeah, the life expectancy got a lot better as they started stop chopping people's heads off.
I mean,
Anyway,
if you're gonna
back
go
to
out,
Mithridates.
if you're gonna go out, that's probably not too bad.
I disagree.
Really?
I don't want to go out because I got my head chopped off fighting for the crown when I'm 30.
Well, 1 minute you're here.
But then Shakespeare writes a play about you, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, sweet. I'll take it.
All right, Matt. Back to Mithridates. Okay, so now we're at the part in the story. This is what we do.
Yeah.
Digressions are important.
He is.
All right,
No,
now
that was great.
get us to.
I'm glad you
he's
focused on
fighting
the
Rome.
Alexander portion of his. Yeah, I'm glad you focused on his Alexander portion of his lineage because it explains his great popularity with the people and this area, this region of the world was under Roman occupation and he saw. So right before Alexander died, he was planning a conquest of an area that would have affected what would become the Roman Empire. So Mithridates saw it as if Alexander had lived, there would be no Roman Empire and there would be no occupation of my lands.
I doubt it, though.
The territory around me.
I
Right.
think
So
we
he
lost the
associated with
Romans.
himself with Alexander. So this is what people thought. So he associated himself with
very fair.
Alexander and sought to continue this conquest. And he did start expanding in his region and provoking the Romans.
Yeah. Because he went east until he basically got too overextended and he couldn't go any farther east. So then it would have made
So
sense for him to go west.
Let's look at the people against whom he was up against at this time.
Mithridates.
So this is the age. Yes, this is the age just before Caesar. There are some names when you just read about Julius Caesar. You will hear some names. You will hear Sulla. You will hear Pompey. Okay, but these guys had careers just before this, and this is the age in which those happened.
Yes. Sulla, the main one, and Marius. Those were the guys that were.
Yeah, Marius
fighting
reformed
for
the Roman military. Yep.
Yep.
But Sulla
Those are
was
the guys that were fighting for
he
Rome.
was the first one to lead his troop. Sulla was a dictator who never gave up his power, who gave up his power, and then went into retirement and died in horrible agony. But Caesar said that guy didn't know his ABCs because he gave up his power.
Right. Yeah, Sulla was interesting. The modern times, right? Just as a little aside. Somebody was talking about how Sulla was, or how Trump on Twitter was Trump was a Caesar, and I said, well, if anything, he's more likely a Sulla, right? He's gonna, but instead of killing people, he's just firing them.
Yeah.
That's
You
that's
told me
the
that
difference.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our
Anyway,
exchange.
but back
yeah.
to Mithridates. Okay, so he's going up against Rome at the end of the Republic, before Caesar brings out his utter downfall. Rome is in chaos. There's a bunch of civil wars, and Mithridates sees this as an excuse, or his time, the time where he could rebel against the Roman Empire and the Roman Republic and overthrow the shackles because they were so corrupted by civil war. So he tried to take advantage and stages one of the biggest, you could call it a terrorist attack.
A lot of people did. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's
the
absolutely
slaughtering
correct.
of
and Adrian Mayer
the
addresses
regular
that.
women and
Adrian
children.
Mayer
Is
says that
where it pushes
specifically.
it over the edge. She did. The author even points that out.
That's tough. Yeah.
Like they were trying to take sanctuary in the churches, and they're like, nope, you got to die anyway.
Yep. Yeah, that's hard, man.
You know,
that's hard stuff.
You could argue that by doing that, he ended up sealing his fate.
Maybe.
Because then Rome was never going to give him quarter. There was no going back after that.
That's fair.
Right? Like he could have been a regular client king, but he wouldn't have it. So he staged that so that everybody was on the same page. Like
victory or death.
Yeah. That's the only option, where we just slaughtered a bunch of innocent women and children.
In a church.
All over the place, right? And so we have to do this. Now we're all on the same page. We have to fight these guys.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's kind of a ballsy move there.
Oh, huge balls. God, you cannot argue that Mithridates didn't have balls. Giant kahunas. The guy had a sack, like Dan Campbell's sack.
Yeah. He had a wheelbarrow in front of him the whole time.
Like the South Park meme. The one South Park episode, do you ever see this one where the one Stan's dad microwaves his nuts? And they get enormous, and then all the women start finding that attractive.
So he can
all
receive,
the dudes in town start
receive prescription weed,
prescription
and they start bouncing their balls down the street.
They're dragging around in wheelbarrows. That's Mithridates. He had a wheelbarrow full of his nuts. He had so much balls.
And Dan Campbell.
And if you don't know Matt, that's the coach of the Lions. That's why we mention him again. He's basically football Jesus.
Oh my God, we got to do an excerpt and send it over.
Yeah,
send it over to the Lions. Yeah. He's basically like football Jesus.
No, I stand by it.
That's good. Yeah. I swear to God, I'm gonna make a T-shirt.
Yeah, I would wear it. Dan Campbell, football Jesus.
You should have 2 grande macchiatos or whatever the hell he drinks every day.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No,
diversions and distractions are part of the charm of the show.
About.
Okay,
it's part of the charm.
Well, Matt, I don't know if you know this, but Dan Campbell drinks 2 venti Starbucks coffees a day with, I think, 2 shots of espresso in each.
And he has a whole tin and chew, I'm sure.
He drinks a lot of
Basically, he's
coffee.
A man's man.
And he does. It's either coffee and nicotine. He might as well just be a service member. It's awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah. Stimulants.
All right.
For
so
Mr.
that's
Campbell.
a lot. I drink a cappuccino, but with 2 shots, and I'm buzzing, dude. 2 of those. Woo.
I think coffee's a poison.
So
you guys are just microdosing.
I love coffee.
Yeah, that's right. We're just microdosing a small amount of poison, building up resistance.
Nasty.
So he wages war against Rome. He's initially successful. Sulla is a commander. Okay, so Sulla, you know what Sulla means? What does that actual name mean?
I don't know.
You want me to look it up?
Pimple face.
Oh, yeah.
It means pimple face.
Well, he was known to have bad skin.
Really?
Yeah, that's what ended up.
Yeah.
He ended up having atrocious, boils and stuff when he was dying. At the end.
Right, but his face was he just grew up as a pimply-faced teenager, and people teased him relentlessly about that.
So he's pot-marked.
But also very charming.
Yeah, and
the main reason he got his money was because he was left it in a will by a famous prostitute that was in love with him.
Interesting.
So
that's how I want to. I'd love that. That would be wonderful, right? I kind of I aspire to that.
Don't give up on your dreams. Okay? There wouldn't be prostitutes now. They're OnlyFans chicks, but it's possible. Don't give up on your dreams. You do you. Now, the odds that they're going to fall in love with you and leave you their fortune, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Matt. It seems long. You're not exactly the wheelhouse for I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe you're bringing more to the party than I know about, but it seems to be that's a hard road to hoe for you for a career. But hey, you do you, buddy. We support you.
100%. I'm behind you, man.
Thank you.
You never
I fucking
know.
love you guys. That's great.
Just not in front of you.
Maybe you need to go to Naples and find some old broads. You know?
That's how you got to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
willing to go there.
pisses off the Romans.
So he wages, he wages a few wars. Sulla's a badass back. So my point was that Sulla was actually a badass military commander, right? And he did good. He actually beat Mithridates a bit. And but my point was that Sulla turns out to be this horrible dictator. Do you guys know how much true crime I engage with and stuff like that? How much I read, and almost to a man, all of these serial killers had some trauma from their background that forced them to be mean.
Right. Well, I mean,
and I just read the one about Robert Hansen, the butcher baker from Anchorage who killed a bunch of sex workers in clubs and stuff, took them out to the woods, hunted them and stuff like that back in the 80s, early 90s.
Jesus Christ.
And he had a pockmarked face and pimples just like that. So it was kind of weird reading this right after that.
Yeah, Sulla had lists of Romans that you could just kill and take their stuff.
The prescriptions.
The prescriptions.
Yeah,
it was a time
and
of
then Caesar's heir would
Rome.
do the same thing. Yeah.
Complete chaos.
He just took money. Yeah.
Well,
so
and
that's
part
a
of
bad
it was
guy. So
Rome was so corrupt, and the system was so fucked that Sulla was trying to get it back to being unfucked, and the way to do that, he thought, was to just murder everybody who was fucking it. It did not
also
work.
take their money. That helped. No,
it did not work. And maybe the only reason it didn't work is because he didn't kill Caesar.
He did it for money as well.
Yeah, true. Take their money.
And
if he'd have killed Caesar,
he persecuted Caesar. He told Caesar to divorce his wife, and Caesar said no, and Sulla said, "Okay, you're now my enemy." And Caesar went into hiding for a while.
No,
he came back and became another dictator.
People begged on Caesar's behalf to not murder him, and Sulla granted him clemency, and he said, this is a famous quote, he said, "There goes 100 Mariuses," and Marius was his enemy.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
He saw in Caesar and the things that he ended up being right about. Right. But he let him go because people petitioned on his behalf because Caesar was so charming, right, and had so many people that loved him. But it's funny because all of these people are, at least not Caesar, but at the time, Sulla, these are contemporaries of Mithridates. So while they're dealing with this civil war and all this onslaught in Rome, every once in a while they go over there and they fight Mithridates, they kick his ass, or they lose a few battles, then they kick his ass and he barely escapes. And then 5 or 10 years later, he comes back and is just fucking with him again. I mean, it is fucking legendary. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. His story is great.
Because nobody does that to the Romans. I mean, Hannibal dragged it out for a while, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of similar.
Hannibal dragged it out for 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, 16 in country.
Yeah, 16 in country, and then they had to chase him all over Africa.
Well, and finally,
and Mithridates did it for 40 years.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
He did. He actually did.
And Rome was way stronger than.
Yeah.
That's why they called him the Hannibal of the East. Yeah.
And
so he.
Go ahead.
He is a baller. He gets back. He wages a war with Rome. He doesn't do well initially. He comes back. So he's back at court for a while, and he's restless. He's used to be in the wild. He actually dips out for a year. His wife cheats on him. Okay, and then he wages some wars. He commits that giant atrocity you talked about. You know what I mean?
What was the name of that? They call it something.
I didn't know that actually. Oh,
I thought there was
the
a name
Purge or whatever you want to.
Kind of like the.
I've never heard that.
But
yeah, it basically is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so he gets back, and he's all paranoid now about conspiracy. And based on no evidence whatsoever, according to Adrian Mayer, the source for all this that I'm working on, he executes his son for treachery.
Yeah, you never know, right? Maybe his son was a dick. You just never know. I don't assume. I mean, the guy might have had great evidence, and we just never, it never comes down to us historically. Or his son might have just been a tool.
Okay, so the event, by the way, I just looked it up.
Yeah.
The event is known as the Asiatic Vespers.
That's a dumb name.
That's
I'm just
awesome.
telling
Okay.
We're not
all right.
calling it that. That's a stupid name.
This kind of is. No.
I'm
We'll
just
call it
telling
the
you what
Purge.
it was called.
Like, how much more badass is the Night of the Long Knives as a name, right? That's a cool name for a bunch of murdering.
Asiatic Vespers.
The Asians just don't know how to name shit. That's part of why they lost. They just didn't know how to name shit.
You say that.
I do. I believe it.
Anyway,
Yeah.
That's cool.
And we digress.
It's cool
once
for
again.
knowing that there was a name for it, though. I actually
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's really interesting to know.
Well, Scott just Googled it.
So
Yeah, that's good. You're
all
supposed to do that.
all those chicks out there name everybody who just named their daughter Vesper. Think of that.
Vespa.
Yeah.
Bond from 007.
Anyways,
Which one was that?
all right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So lives a long
Yeah,
life
that was the
fighting Rome the
casino
whole
rally.
time while wearing Alexander's
Right.
cloak. That's the crux of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was following
Became a
in Alexander's
legend.
footsteps. So
You know what's funny? This is what occurred to me, Matt. I'm going to do a little aside. Hardcore history.
Okay.
He talks about lost causes. Dan Carlin has the lost cause episode. Why wasn't Mithridates in there? What an underdog.
Yeah, that's
right?
the thing.
What an underdog.
Never really heard about him, right? Yeah.
You don't think about it because, again,
Greatly influential.
you don't think about him. He's a footnote in Roman history because there was so much crazy shit going on at the time.
Yeah.
So, like, what they were dealing with Mithridates doesn't seem like that big a deal because they were fighting everybody and they were fighting each other like way even more hard. The hardest battles they had to face were the civil wars, right? So if you study Roman history, you don't come away thinking about how awesome Mithridates was because all their main battles were with each other. And Sulla was fighting Marius, and then Caesar and Pompey and Crassus and the Triumvirate and all that crazy stuff. That's drama that they have the point of view of both sides. Whereas with Mithridates, you just know the people who were fighting him mostly, right? So it kind of gets lost in the history shuffle. I don't think it's anything racist or anything like that. I just think it's the drama on the Italian side was so crazy that people are more likely to get lost in that.
I think you're right, and you pointed out at the beginning of the talk, man, where it's like Mithridates took advantage of this situation with the Roman empire, we can call it an empire at the time, where they were engaged in something called the social war. You know, that's a really good point, and it's like
I think they call it the Civil War.
It was a social war, I think it was called.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was a civil war. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there was
a
a long period of civil war, and it just would flare up once in a while.
Yeah.
And
And
he
that
attacked
shows-
during that to take advantage of it smartly.
Yeah, and that shows the vibe of how the people actually thought about the Romans. Like Hannibal was liberating these people. Mithridates was liberating these people.
Right.
And,
But also, it was just par for the course. Like, an empire takes you over. You go along with it until you can try to overthrow them. Then you overthrow them if you can. And if you can't, you try and you lose. Like, that had literally been happening since the Assyrians.
What that comes down to is the personality or legislature of the people ruling you. And with Mithridates, it was a person who we know was a cool dude. Like, I'd want to hang out with this dude. Let's go hunting. Let's go fishing. Whatever.
I feel like
but
you
with
wouldn't.
Rome, it was a system.
I don't think
you
you'd
know
want
what
to
I
hang
mean,
out with
though.
Mithridates.
You guys.
Yeah, I got
you guys.
Yeah.
We skip past the part where he married his sister, but with Rome it was a system you're being ruled by, and there was it was different. It was different. So at this point in the wars, he's not doing well. He's actually fled into the wilderness, and there he meets he meets a chick from one of the tribes, and they're called Amazons because they're fierce warrior women.
Mm-hmm.
But first, like, he hangs out with her,
Hot.
and then she proves to be his intellectual equal. She's out writing and discussing, concepts of philosophy, whatever. All
Maybe.
This with him.
Pause.
Ends up falling in love with her.
Stories say that.
Maybe.
I would love to know how the hell you could possibly know that. Right?
Because
Maybe
as
she
Adrian
just
Mayer
said,
says,
"Oh, you're right. Good point." It's easy
That's
to
a good
fake
point.
that,
Okay, so
especially
George-
if you have big tits. Like, maybe
Jesus Christ, George.
Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in on this. Let's zoom in on. We'll counter that absolutely. Adrian Mayer says she's again employing a scientific use of imagination, and she says She says the only reason this guy would have hung out with this chick is like if she was proven to be his intellectual equal, and
that's
it may be seeming like
nope,
boobies.
That is
it may
so.
Be seeming
that
like,
is
maybe,
so from a woman's perspective.
Maybe
it's
seeming
bullshit.
like it may be seeming like
nice
boobies.
Ass.
What a good reason for that. But
yeah, man.
you have to remember, and I'll point this out. This guy had like a harem.
Yeah,
this guy had
matter.
all this stuff going on.
You're assuming that you could have 20 and not want 21 women.
He would not be dazzled by a pair of boobs. Like
you
easily,
say that.
You know
what
I mean?
That.
Like he's had women.
The kind of guy who is that testosterone up and has
of your
20
guys'
women.
opinion now that we're talking about it.
Think about it. If you have 20 women,
I'm kind of like,
what's
oh
one
my
more?
God.
No, one more is also like you were greedy enough
plus,
to want
like,
20.
He had been away. Plus, he didn't
He's
have his
left in the
harem
woods.
anymore, right?
He's left in the woods, and I would.
Woods, yeah.
Listen, it just shows you because the author is a woman, and it shows you how women think men think. Well, what possible reason could he want for her if she wasn't his intellectual equal? Well, there's a lot of reasons I could think about.
There's a couple.
Right, but a woman might not think that, and I could see that.
Wait a minute. There's a couple glaringly obvious
ones. But she might have been his intellectual equal. She might have been a fucking genius. She might have been like Alexander's mom. We don't know.
She might have
been.
been.
I find it as a silly idea to assume that because he fell for her. Because lots of really smart guys
now, wait a minute.
fall for really dumb but good-looking women.
Wait a minute. She could have been his intellectual equal with G cups.
She could be. Absolutely. My point is, we have no way to know.
That's true.
And so she can use her imagination because her imagination means a guy like Mithridates would only really fall for a woman like that if she was really his intellectual equal.
Sure.
What are the odds that that guy wants an intellectual equal?
He might.
He's that exceptional. What are the odds he just happens to stumble on one?
She's a warrior woman.
Well, what are the odds he stumbles on one in the woods?
Probably pretty good.
Guy's a fucking smart guy. Really smart guy.
Probably pretty good.
The odds that he stumbles upon a really smart woman just
warrior
hanging
woman,
out in the woods seem low. Now, it's a much better odds that he stumbles into a hot chick that he's like, hey, you want to hang out? And she's like, you're the king. Yeah, sure. Statistically, my scenario is much more likely.
I don't disagree.
And then he's like telling everybody, hey, she's so awesome. She's a genius. She's got really
she agrees
good
with
IQ.
everything I
She's
say.
got a really big IQ. You know? You know what I mean? Like, that's what he's saying. And history comes down is she's a genius.
She might be.
But he might have been being sarcastic. He might have been saying that. Honestly, he might have been being sarcastic. My point is, there's no reason to assume she's that smart, and there's no reason to assume she's stupid. Who knows?
Maybe she was really smart.
Maybe she was smarter than him.
She was using all of her assets.
Hey, man, I don't judge that. That's not my point. This is not
either.
supposed to be judgy.
Hey, she's got a Wikipedia page nowadays, so either way, it worked out good for her.
Yeah, well, I don't know. How'd she die?
Yeah, did he poison her?
Oh my God.
No?
Matt's checking her Wikipedia page. Hold on.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, take this."
She may have died during an uprising. She may have died during an uprising in Phanagoria in 63 BC.
The old Phanagoria in 63
Yeah,
BC.
the uprising.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Famous uprising.
Yeah.
All right.
Something was rising.
All right, so
Jesus, dude, that was good.
That's actually I love that portion of this. You just turned my head on some stuff. That was a really good perspective.
That was well done, Scott.
I love this.
Oh, that's fun.
So at this point, Pompey is after him. And now, what do we know about Pompey? Pompey was a great general who was given a commission to go solve the pirate situation in the east, right? Mithridates was highly aligned with the pirates, and so that's how they came into conflict, right? That was Pompey's territory.
Because pirating was so bad on the Mediterranean that it was fucking up all the trade.
Yep.
So
yeah, it was
Pompey
an entire
was
nation.
given extraordinary authority in Rome to go solve the pirate problem. He took a legion or two, and he went and killed all the fucking pirates. And then he went to their islands and killed them all. And fucking wiped them out. And then he got a triumph. Because he was a badass. Only person he ever lost to was Caesar.
The pirate, like there was pirate fleets that were considered nations unto themselves.
Yeah, and Pompey fucked them all up. If I had a
He
son,
did. That's how great
I
he
would
was.
name him Pompey. That's pretty dope.
That's a good one.
The only guy he lost to was Caesar, and that's because he kind of didn't really want to fight him.
So would your second son be Caesar?
So if I had a son, he would be George Henry Ramey IV. But if I had a second son, he'd be Pompey the Great. His middle name would be the Great. How fucking dope would that be? We need to bring back names.
Magnus. You just name him Magnus.
Is pretty awesome.
That is actually
his name
really
was
awesome. Damn
Magnus. Yeah, you fucked up. Why'd you have to have a daughter? Quitter. Matt, there's still time. You need to knock a broad up. Knock a broad up and name your kid Magnus.
I'm down.
Yeah.
All right.
Ladies, if you're looking to get knocked up and have a son named Magnus,
with Matt.
hit up Matt in the Discord channel.
Yeah, with Matt.
Check out Matt Bella on the Discord channel. He's looking for a woman that's willing to be...
Second episode where you've used this. Is this second episode where you use this platform as a dating for me?
All right. That's not a bad... Hey. It's not a bad plan. I like it.
Yeah. Hey. You never know.
I love it.
There might be like 5 women that listen to this.
I'm down.
2.
There's probably Matt's mom, and then we know Sunflower.
Yeah.
So that's at least 2. There's got to be a few we don't know about. Anyway, okay, so Mithridates, Sulla fucks him up. He lives to fight another day.
Pompey is after him now.
Then
Pompey is after him now. Like this guy, this great general we've just been talking about is now on his heels. He does. And he also wants to say that he defeated a great king. So he's pursuing Mithridates through the hills. Mithridates leaves honeycombs behind with poison honey, and Pompey's soldiers eat it, and 1,000 people die. Pompey pursues him through the hills into like tarantula and snake-infested woods. Like all these kind of things are going on, or deserts. All these things are going on. And there's a couple like Pompey's soldiers advance in the moonlight, and their shadow makes them look closer than they actually are. So Mithridates' archers loose their arrows early, and they miss, and 10,000 of Mithridates' soldiers are killed. All these it's really cool battles that are going on.
Right.
Pompey finally catches them up with him and presses him to such a point that his own people are turning against him. Okay, so actually, prior to that, like the Romans are celebrating Saturnalia, and they're attacked by tribes, including women warriors. Like, so the Amazon women are playing a big part in this. But like, eventually, Pompey has got Mithridates cornered. He can run no further, and his own people are turning against him. They say, like, you caused us to go to war in a foreign land. His veterans are saying, we're rich now. We want to retire. The same thing has happened to Alexander. And his own people are turning on him and saying, we want your son to be king. And so he opens up the handle of his dagger that he always carries with him, has since he was a youth, and he pours out the finely machined file, and it's the strongest poison known to man. And his daughters are there, and they say, Father, will you let us succumb to the Roman swords, or will you give us some of this poison? And he says, here, daughter. Watches her die. Here, daughter, watches her die. And he drinks the remainders, and he does not die. Now, this may be because he built up such a tolerance, or it may be because he gave them some first.
That's fucking terrible. That's not how I would go out.
You go out like a man?
I fucking go fuck those Romans up.
Or at least try?
Yeah.
They'd probably shoot you with full of arrows.
That's fine. That's better than watching your daughters get poisoned.
He was gonna. Pompey was gonna capture him and parade him
take him back to Rome.
In his triumph.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take him back to Rome. Have him wear a collar, and then ritually sacrifice him.
Strangle him.
But that's better than watching your daughters take your poison. That's fucking.
They would have been sold
worse.
into sexual slavery.
Maybe, but maybe you could swing a deal.
No, definitely.
Like, I'll turn myself in. Just let my daughters leave. I don't know.
I don't think Pompey would have
like,
taken that chance.
They're like, sure, come on.
Pompey
no,
was.
no.
Pompey was.
No, they would have got your daughters, dude.
Pompey was a very generous person.
I don't think he'd have let that happen.
I bet he would have let the daughters leave.
In the end, you're right, George. You're right. At the end, so there's two things. So after this, Pompey holds his great triumph from Rome. There's all the spoils of the East. The armor on parade, the animals, the captives. Hey, look at what it looks like over there. Look at what I conquered. And he builds touts Mithridates as the greatest king of the East, which pays him honor, to your point, but also builds up Pompey as someone
himself.
who defeated the greatest king
because
of the East,
hey,
right?
if he's the best and I beat him, then I'm obviously the best.
Right. That's absolutely correct. Yeah, it's absolutely.
If he could have brought Mithridates' daughters back with him, it probably would have been a feather in his cap. They might have took care of him.
Yep. And so, but he did, and to your point, George, benevolent person, he did have Mithridates buried with all honors, which had never happened to a foreign king before.
Sure. Because it made Pompey look better too.
And he was a worthy adversary.
Yeah, maybe.
I think proclaiming him the greatest king of the East was what made Pompey look better, but burying with all honors was the extra step to say, like, this dude was actually legit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fucking, we had some times, and I had to beat him.
What's
but
so fun
I
about that story,
him, you know?
Matt, what's so fun about that story is this was 2,000 years ago. And we know so much about these individual people that you could know Pompey's character, at least as much as we can.
Yeah.
But and Mithridates, and you can know these people 2,000 years later. It's fucking awesome. What are they going to see in 2,000 years from now? They'll be able to just watch the video and see what our rulers and our leaders said and did.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Like, the whole thing's awesome. Matt, you did a fucking phenomenal job, buddy.
As always.
Matt's mom, you should be proud of him. I hope you're still listening because he nailed it.
Agreed.
Carried the podcast. Your back's got to be sore.
It's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
A lot of weight.
Carry the hopes and dreams of the whole podcast on your shoulders, buddy.
Especially
you fucking nailed that. What a great story. People, if you want to find out more or get the details of this, check out the book, The Poison King. Matt shared the link to it in Discord. It is on Audible. Is an audiobook available on Audible. Fucking great. I mean, just phenomenal. Interesting. Like, how has this not been a movie? And maybe it has been in the East. Because like we said, like, this story is super popular for people who think that they are still at war with the West and an extension of the Roman Empire, which a lot of places in the East probably feel that way. And so Mithridates is still looked on there as a Geronimo, you know, as a Vercingetorix. That's what he is to them, right? Fighting the lost cause, Tecumseh. That's their. This is the East version of Tecumseh or Geronimo or Sitting Bull.
Yes.
Fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
That's an archetype of human history. The lost cause, the rebel, that fights against the evil big bad.
The Emperor.
But that's a real thing that throughout human history has been a thing that happens.
Fight the Empire, George.
Yeah.
All right, on that, I think it's time to...
Let's wrap this up. Matt, thanks for joining us. Way to go. This was a fascinating discussion. And again, if you are looking to have a son named Magnus...
Awesome.
And you're a woman and you're of childbearing age, I recommend Matt Bella. If you want some genes that are pretty smart for your kids, that's a good one.
Sounds good to me.
Author, good author. I've read his books. They are really well done. And one day he will be a famous published author, so you should get on the ground floor. Buy low, so someday you can sell high. That's all I'm saying. Right now, he's not published yet. You could buy low. Women, take my advice.
Could I close with two things? Can I close with two things here? One is that I really enjoy Adrienne Mayer. She's a great author, and she did a lot of work on this subject. So, one thing this story of Mithridates highlights is the importance of poison in the ancient world, and she wrote another book all about just poison in the ancient world. It's called Greek Fire, poison arrows and scorpion bombs. It's a great book. I recommend
Scorpion
reading
bombs?
that other work by her as well. Yeah.
Cool. That's ballsy.
Biological and chemical warfare in the ancient world. It's her second book. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's really good.
I'll have to check that out.
The other one is this thing that I highly entreat everyone to do so. Adrienne Mayer is great. The other one is a topic which we continually come to again in the course of these episodes, and which we often conclude, which is don't fuck with Rome.
Yeah. It did not pay off well for almost everybody.
Almost.
Until like the 400s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took some crazy fucking Germans. The Germans. And then in the Eastern Roman Empire, it took another 1,000 years past that.
You don't talk about these things, George.
Yeah.
This is not how this works.
These crazy fucking Germans.
You just come up with a better plan and you take over.
The enemy is not vanquished unless he considers himself so. That's why you don't fuck with Rome.
Because they never thought they were vanquished.
Crazy eye ties. You ever had an argument with an Italian?
Yeah.
You're not gonna win because they're stubborn, crazy bastards, and that stuff is still there 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years later. Wild. All right, Matt.
All right, buddy.
Thanks again, buddy. What a great conversation.
Thank you all for.
Check out Hardcore History Discussions Discord channel. Throw any comments you have in there, or hit up Matt for his digits in there if you're a lady. All right, everybody. Love you. Thanks for listening.
Have a good night.
Peace out.
Peace.